Let's Talk TV. Welcome to this segment of Let's Talk TV. Today, I'm going to focus in on the men. Here's a question for you, men. Have you ever heard this statement, real men don't cry? I think for the most part of our lives, we've had to contend with always trying to be strong, right? And not show our emotions outwardly. You may have grown up in a house where you can count on your hands the amount of times that you've seen your dad, be vulnerable or be emotional. Numerous times I've seen my dad, display disappointment and anger, but rarely did I see him, display vulnerability. I would venture to say that not all, but some are taught from an early age that vulnerability and tears, especially, are for the most part, let's say, feminine, if you will. Because we're taught this, and because we're raised on this, and because this is embedded in us at a very early age by either a strong-willed father, a strong-willed mother, or even both, it may be part of the reason why today that we see the culture surrounded in so much turmoil and so much turbulence. You know, King David is credited with writing almost half of the Psalms in the Bible. In those Psalms, he writes about worship and praise of the Lord. He writes about his relationship with God and how God had protected him and how God had helped him to defeat his enemies. But David also wrote about hardship and suffering and anguish and sorrow. As men, suffering and sorrow are part of living this earthly life. Let me say that again. As men, suffering and sorrow are part of living this earthly life that we live. Events in each and every one of our lives are going to bring you and I grief. It's not strange or odd or foreign or unbecoming as a man to shed some tears. In the Gospel of John, the 11th chapter and the 35th verse, it's the shortest in all the Bible. The scene is at the tomb of Lazarus. That was Jesus's friend. And the verse says, Jesus wept. There's another place in the Gospel of Matthew, the 26th chapter, where we see the Lord expressing deep sorrow. This is at the Garden of Gethsemane, the night before his crucifixion. And Jesus said these words. Listen to this. He said, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. He said to his disciples, stay here and keep watch with me. 3 times, not once, not twice, but 3 times, Jesus entreated God the Father. 3 times he asked as sorrow overwhelmed him emotionally. If Jesus was emotional, then who are we to keep our tears shut up inside of us? Men, let's talk for a minute. What do you do when you're hurt? What about when you suffer personal loss? What do you do when you're frustrated? When you're annoyed? When you're angry? When you're disappointed? What do you do? Do you lash out? Do you hold it in and not talk to anyone? What do you do? Can I offer you a solution? The solution is taking it to the Lord. The solution is pouring out your heart and pouring out your tears and pouring out your hurts before the Lord. The solution is latching on to a mature brother whom the Lord will send your way. Listen to this, so that you can have someone to talk to openly, someone to pray with you, and someone who is not going to condemn you because they themselves are vulnerable. Think about that. God wants us to share our feelings and our emotions. And as men, typically, we don't do that. But how else are you going to have that burden lifted from you? How else are you going to have that weight of emotion remain inside of you, that it eats you up both emotionally and spiritually? Talk to the Lord. He wants to hear from you. He wants you to release whatever it is that's in your heart. Wow, that's all the time we have for this segment. We certainly hope that you receive from the Lord today this important message. And Lord willing, we'll see you next time. God bless you and God bless your family.
Let's Talk TV.